It's not on mine.
Ruth, are you there?
I think we probably need to delay for one more second while we get Board Member Kaplan on the phone. This morning, I have a couple of announcements to make. I know that Board Member Chertavian has to leave at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to alter the agenda slightly. And I also know that Ruth Kaplan, who we're about to get on the phone, has injured her back, and we hope Ruth is well soon. We're sorry that she is in some pain. As we get started, I'd like the board to introduce themselves to our guest today, and I'll start with you, AJ, if that's okay.
I'm AJ Feinsilver. I'm the student representative and the chair of the State Student Advisory Council. I go to Brooklyn High School, where I'm a student.
I'm Beverly Holmes, and I'm from Springfield, Mass. Sandra Stotsky from Brookline.
Dana Molifaria from Bridgewater.
I'm Harneen Chernow from Boston.
I'm Maura Banta from Melrose.
Mitchell Chester, Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Nick Martinelli here on behalf of Secretary Revel.
Gerald Chertavian from Cambridge.
Tom Fortman from Lexington.
Jeff Howard from Reading.
Cut off a few times.
Okay.
Great. And Ruth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. It's Ruth Kaplan from and in Brookline.
Ruth, welcome. It's Maura, and I was just saying how we all send you our best wishes.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay.
It's not the same.
All right. We have a very busy agenda today, and we're going to spend some time on the Mass Tells, on some charter school business, on the MCAS history. And so I want to get right into the first change I need to make on the agenda, which is to move something forward. And I'm going to move the discussion of the Gloucester Charter School forward. It will be discussed right after we hear public comment. So, again, it's wonderful to have you all with us today. In the last month, I've had the opportunity to represent the board in a number of meetings. I guess most notably, I've met with representatives from Teach for America and learned a lot more about their work in Massachusetts and their work nationally. I've also spent some time with the Mass Business Alliance for Education, a coalition and group that I used to chair, and they've updated me on their success with the State Scholars Initiative, something that the department has been very active with. As you know, at our last meeting, I asked Board Member Jeff Howard to chair a subcommittee. And this group is to look at the state's performance and proficiency gaps. Since that time, I've asked several board members to join Jeff in that work. And Dana Molifaria, Gerald Chertavian, Harneen Chernow, and Beverly Holmes have agreed to do that. So let me thank Jeff and the committee for the work that they're about to do. The group had their first meeting last night, and or yesterday afternoon, and I was fortunate to be able to attend. They're very focused on who exactly is underperforming, how do we go about the very thoughtful data analysis, and how do we come up with a strategy. The goal here is really to produce a cohesive and efficient plan to support the field as the field works to address the proficiency and performance gap. The committee will meet regularly for the next 6 to 9 months, and of course all the meetings will be open to the public. I would add here that this is very important work that they are doing, so as I thank them, I know that it's going to shape the board's policy decisions and discussions. So thank you very much to that committee. Last night we heard from the Mass Tells Coalition, and I believe this document is available to everyone who's here today. If you haven't picked up a copy, you should. Mass Tells is the Massachusetts Teaching, Learning, and Leading Survey. And back in the day when I chaired MBAE, I was a member of this coalition. It was a great honor to serve with this group of folks. We're going to hear about the survey results. We're going to hear from trainers. We're going to hear from principals later in the agenda. I just want to thank, in particular, the MTA for hosting last night's meeting, where we had a broader discussion of the data and talked a bit about next steps. Last month, we also talked about the ELA frameworks, and it was a brief discussion, but we talked about the revised version of the ELA frameworks. And since then, both Board Member Sandra Stotsky and Board Member Tom Fortman have offered to work with the department to help as we revise the frameworks. So let me thank both Tom and Sandra for their efforts going forward. With that, I'm going to turn to the Commissioner and ask him if he'd like to make some remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep my remarks brief because we have a pretty packed agenda. There are a number of items in the board book for information. I would just like to point the board toward the information on the 21st century skills, which are behind tab 9, consistent with the board's direction in December. We have put together for you both an inventory, and it's a partial inventory. I would say it's select items that represent areas in which there's initiatives underway which I would argue are consistent with the recommendations of the task force, not intended to be complete and not intended to suggest in any way or form that in fact this represents a strategic or deliberate set of initiatives, but just to make the point that it's not that the recommendations coming out of the task force are wholly new and unique to the thinking that's been going on in this agency, both before I came and since I've come to the agency. The second document behind that tab is a crosswalk between the recommendations of the 21st Century Task Force and the board priorities that we identified in August during our retreat. And what we've done is identified where we think there are task force recommendations that are consistent with the priorities that were identified in August, and where we think there's gaps, where we think there are priorities that don't necessarily match up with a specific recommendation from the task force and vice versa. Our plan is to continue to come back to you eventually with a business plan for moving forward on the recommendations. I know there's a tremendous amount of energy being generated in regard to the task force recommendations, and the print media should be happy for this because we keep them stocked with information. Just this morning in the Globe, they have an editorial on this topic and an op-ed piece from our own chair, Maura Banta. So I hope everybody's had a chance to read both of those pieces. So, Madam Chair, that's all I'll take time on to comment on at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner. And as I turn to our next speaker, who is Nick Martinelli, the General Counsel for Secretary Revel, I need to say that Nick is sitting in for Secretary Revel today. We're thrilled to have you with us. Thank you. The Secretary is in Washington with the Governor, meeting with Arnie Duncan, I believe, and we wish him all success. Thank you for being with us, Nick.
Thanks, Maura. As Maura said, as Chair Banta said, Secretary Revel regrets being absent today due to his meeting with Governor Patrick and Secretary Duncan in Washington, D.C. was scheduled only yesterday, so it became an unavoidable conflict. In his absence, he's designated me to vote on his behalf, and the purpose of Secretary Revel and the Governor's meeting with Secretary Duncan today is for the Secretary and the Governor to continue to advocate on behalf of the education sector in Massachusetts and to ask that the distribution of the federal funds in the stimulus bill be flexible and expedited. Notably, Governor Patrick was a chief proponent of ensuring that a portion of the stimulus funds are dedicated to education. Secretary Revel met yesterday with all three education commissioners, early ed, elementary and secondary ed, and higher ed, and the UMass president to continue to develop a plan for the use of available stimulus funds. Two new commissioners have officially begun their work. Commissioner Sherry Killens at the Department of Early Education and Care, who is collaborating with Commissioner Chester on school readiness, and Commissioner Freeland at the Department of Higher Education, who is collaborating with Commissioner Chester on college readiness. A working group is being put together on this, and that's it for the Secretary's update.
Great. Thank you very much, Nick. Okay, next on our agenda are the statements from the public, and I'd like to call first Senator Bruce Tarr. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and good to the members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to come and share a couple of thoughts with you today, particularly about the Gloucester Community Arts Charter School application that is pending before the board. But I also want to say it's good to see all of you, and it's particularly good to see Nick Martinelli thriving in an environment other than the Senate, where he did so well, and it's great to be here and to see him here as well. I also want to thank Commissioner Chester for the time that he has taken to speak with a number of us on what is a very controversial and very difficult situation with regard to the charter school application that is before you. I also want to say at the outset that those of us in the legislature understand the difficulty that we will all face in maintaining excellence in our schools given the current fiscal climate. And I think I speak for every one of my colleagues, intend to do what we can to be good partners with you to ensure that our schools not only survive but thrive in these difficult economic times. That being said, I do want to offer some thoughts on the charter school application that is before you today. One that is uniquely before you today because it's the only charter school application that will be presented to you for consideration in this season. And one that is uniquely before you today because it comes in a climate of the greatest fiscal uncertainty than the Commonwealth has faced, at least in the last 3 decades. And as you look at that, and as you look at all the other uncertain variables involved in this application, I would encourage you to take a pause, to give this charter school application and the community that it will affect the opportunity to do something unique and innovative and beneficial for all of the students in the city of Gloucester and the surrounding communities. There are a number of variables within the 4 corners of this application which demand that we take additional time to review it. There are questions about the folks that are partners on this application and what status they continue to have as to whether or not they're involved in the project. There are questions about the public input. I know that it is unfortunate that no members of the board were able to be present at the charter school hearing that we had in the city of Gloucester, which drew, I believe, the largest turnout of any such meeting in the entire history of charter schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That, to me, indicates there's a need for some additional time to consider the information presented and consider all of the facts and circumstances in which you find the context of this application. Particularly so, Madam Chair, given the fact that a number of those issues have been documented in a binder that we have presented to each of you, as well as to the governor and lieutenant governor and the legislative leadership in the State House, so that you could understand that there are a lot of issues here that remain to be resolved. Having said all of that, Madam Chair, I believe that no parent in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, whether they be the parent of a proponent of a charter school or whether they be the parent of a child in a public school, in a Commonwealth school, should be ignored. And I believe that everyone has a role to play in this dialogue. And that dialogue in Gloucester is unfortunately only just beginning. I have been overwhelmed by the passion in my city for education that has been evidenced by the folks on both sides of this application. And I believe, Madam Chair, that that dialogue has only begun, and you can help it to continue so that we find not a tool that is the best for a particular group of students, but the tool and tools that are best for every student in the city of Gloucester and beyond. And I believe that the granting of the application today will preclude the kind of dialogue that will enable that to happen. Again, there are many variables, and I'm not going to go into each and every one of them because they're documented in the information that we have given you. But I sense that this board has a unique opportunity, even in the context, Madam Chair, of our consideration of the governor's proposal for readiness schools and new approaches to the situation that we face. So I would hope that you would also take a unique approach given the circumstances that we face and allow the representative, myself, the mayor, and other leaders in the city of Gloucester to be able to work together towards something more innovative than what is presented to you, something that doesn't duplicate what's being done already in the Gloucester Public Schools, but something that helps us to reach for excellence and does it with the partnership of every person in the community that cares about education and this board. So I hope you will consider my views in that regard, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to offer them, and I thank you for the decisions that you make every day to try to make education better in Massachusetts.
Thank you very much, Senator Tarr. We appreciate your being with us and hearing your views today.
Madam Chair, if I might also thank you, Senator Tarr, and just acknowledge, I know that the recommendation I made to the board is not a recommendation that many of the folks in this room welcome. But I do want to acknowledge the level of engagement and advocacy that I've encountered in the community and from both elected officials and parents and others, some of whom are here today. So I do appreciate that, and I have weighed that in my recommendation, but I want to make that acknowledgement to you.
Thank you very much. Would Representative Ann Margaret Ferrante please join us? Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and through you, members of your board. I want to make Senator Tarr's appeal a bipartisan appeal. Senator Tarr is a Republican in the Senate. I'm the Democrat in the House of Representatives. This is an issue today when we ask for this pause that we see as nonpartisan, but in the best interests of the children in our district. If you received the binder, and you should have, and you've read through it, you know that there's 4 components to it that I'm just going to highlight briefly. One is the statement of our superintendent, Christopher Farmer, who lays out the challenges that the Gloucester School District already faces. The second is a report of Roger Garber, who will also speak today, where he outlines 27 areas where what's proposed in the charter school application is already being addressed by the school system. There's also a report of Peter Dolan that calls into question some of the partnerships within the application. And finally, there's school committee comment and also a letter from the Gloucester Education Foundation. And in it, they talk about the significant innovation that they've brought to the school system. $1 million grant from, in conjunction with MIT for a robotics program. A $600,000 grant from NOAA that focuses on a maritime heritage program. And it goes on to list others. And I'm not here to weigh the merits of each of those arguments, but to say that at least there's a significant rebuttal to the application. And having seen that, Senator Tarr and I have offered to facilitate meetings and discussions between both the proponents of the charter school application and those who are rebutting its assertions. So therefore, in that spirit of facilitating those discussions and allowing those discussions to take place, we've asked for the pause. And I just want to give 4 reasons for that pause. The first is, again, to allow the parties to talk and to facilitate those discussions, because what I find when I hear the proponents of the application speak and those that are rebutting it is everybody has the best interests of the children at heart. From my standpoint, it's frustrating to see 2 groups of people who are so passionate about the children of Gloucester and Cape Ann, but yet to see them on different ends of the spectrum. So our hope was to bring them closer together. The second is, as Senator Tarr pointed out, we're in uncharted territories within this economy. And what we hear at our consensus hearings, and I know that it's unprecedented that the commissioner actually commented on the economics and the economy that we face, but what we're being told at the State House is that the economic challenges that we see today will impact the budget of fiscal year 10, 11, and 12. So if there's anybody in this room that thinks that even if this economy sees an upturn by the end of this calendar year or fiscal year, that is the end of our problems, you're wrong. The best economic information presented to Secretary Kerwin and both chairs of House and Senate Ways and Means is that all 3 of those budgets, at the very least, will be impacted. Third, as I read Superintendent Farmer's comments, what I see is that there'll be a consolidation, at the very least, if not closures of small elementary schools. And I find it ironic because 2 years ago, the big pronouncement in education was preserve your neighborhood schools, keep your elementary school classes small. And now what we're hearing is perhaps this charter school comes in, and perhaps up to 3 elementary schools are closed, which then reverses the decision that the community came to 2 years ago to close its centralized large elementary school to move to the neighborhood schools. And what we'll see is a closure of those schools and a redirection to a large centralized elementary school. So when you vote today, should you vote in favor of the application and to move that forward, what you'll be doing is you'll be asking the community of Gloucester to reverse its position on education, which contradicts everything that the community was told 2 years ago. So please don't see this decision just in the narrowest of today we're approving an application. See it in the broader of this vote to go forward today, if it's taken, will reverse a philosophy of education that's been built on for at least the past, I don't know, I would say at least the past decade of the school committee to keep small schools open and to keep class sizes small. And the last point I'd like to make is there is a consensus in the legislature that we should look at the funding of charter schools. And if that process were to be undertaken, I know that the new House Chair of Education has interest in releasing a bill that will look at the financing of charter schools, to release that to a commission to study. We all know that a commission would take at least 1 year to review that process. Realistically, it would take the legislature 2 years to implement any change that could benefit our district, so there doesn't have to be this change in philosophy, and so that we can accommodate all of the innovative ideas that are being brought forth by, again, the proponents of the charter school and those in rebuttal. So I would ask this group to take that time, to take the pause that's necessary, so that at the end of the day, we don't have the controversy and the conflict that we're going to see and you're going to hear about today, but instead we have a smooth transition to better education for the children of Gloucester. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Ferrante.
And Madam Chair, if I can, I'd just like to submit this
Thank you.
into the record.
Thank you. Next, I'd like Mayor Carolyn Kirk to address the board. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking my testimony at the last minute. Commissioner, nice to see you, members of the board. Good morning. My name is Carolyn Kirk. I am the mayor of the city of Gloucester, and I just have a few remarks that I'd like to make to you this morning. And the debate on the charter schools in the Commonwealth and in Gloucester specifically have been very divisive. And it's primarily due to the result that what happens is you're essentially creating an elite education at the expense of all of the other children in the city. And the way that that translates in Gloucester is 1/3 of our state education funding would have to be diverted to 7% of the children of Gloucester if a charter school were to come to pass. Now, I realize the commissioner's recommendation is conditioned by the city of Gloucester achieving foundation level. Well, Gloucester fulfills its responsibility to foundation level education spending. We spend more than our foundation level. The Commonwealth contributes $6.2 million to education, but the city of Gloucester contributes $30 million, which brings us over foundation level. And that funding comes at the expense of public safety, public works, and the other essential services that are required by the city of Gloucester. The parents that you'll hear from today who are opposed to the application are dedicated parents. They have stuck through our public school system through thick and thin. The reconfiguration that the representative spoke of was a tumultuous time. We redistricted 450 children. It was a very, very difficult implementation. That would be undone. We have had 6 years of budget cuts, and from what I understand, the worst is yet to come. As a community, I wish we could have found more common ground in this discussion, because we all share the goal of excellence in education for our children. And if the application is denied today, which I hope it is, I will commit myself as mayor, as a member of the school committee, and as a parent of 2 children in the Gloucester Public School System, to find that common ground in the form of a readiness school or some other alternative that moves us together forward on what we all want for our children, which is excellence in education. I respectfully ask you today to give our public schools the fighting chance that they deserve, and to deny the application for the charter school in Gloucester. Thank you.
Mayor Kirk, thank you for your comments. We appreciate you being here today. Next, I'd like Peter Azar, the Waltham Superintendent, to address the board.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. And I come to you fully understanding the efforts of the Rediscovery Inc. group in Waltham to start a charter school, because the cause is so noble. The cause is about disenfranchised youth who are looking for a way to move forward. However, while their proposal is ambitious, I think that their attempt needs to take a very close look at their attempt, because I feel two things are missing. One is, I don't think the school fits the definition of a charter school, mainly because the charter school is supposed to be an alternative in the school district, while this program is really one that's open to the entire state. I think in addition to that, there are too many unknowns. We finally had an opportunity to talk with the people who were presenting the proposal, and in those conversations, we talked at length about the full range of the proposal, and again, the unknowns about what will happen with students who are taking advantage of this opportunity if in fact it's passed, are things that the people who are making the proposal are not able to identify. We go to the design of the Rediscovery Charter School. First of all, it's not consistent with typical charter schools. As I said, it's not an alternative in the district. What it is, it's a proposal that is open to all children across the state. And as I had said earlier, we did not speak with representatives until recently. And without that conversation, I wouldn't know our efforts to address the needs of disenfranchised youth in Waltham, which is to expand an already existing alternative program for students in the high school. In addition, the proposed program makes many claims in its description of its course of study, including a rigorous academic program, community service projects, vocational programming, and school-to-work programs. Looking at the teaching staff, which cumulatively does not have 10 years of experience, I really question their ability to deliver that model. In addition, the proposed program focuses on disenfranchised youth from across the Commonwealth, but it highlights, I found out, students from Worcester to Boston, not including Cape Cod. The reality of that is that many of those students might view living in Waltham as very attractive. And given the fact that the age of the students that are being targeted for this charter school is from 16 to 24, we're talking about young adults as opposed to students. Each one of those students has the potential of resulting in a $16,000 a year charge to the city of Waltham and to the school department because of that child's association with the charter school. In addition to that, there's a significant potential for students to move in, and with 10 students, you're talking about $160,000, and with 50 students, you're talking about $800,000 out of the 220 students that are proposed for that program. Parties who have proposals, as I said, had not had conversations with us until recently. The concern that I had is the unknowns. And the unknowns are the children moving in. The unknowns are some of the outreach that we're looking for. And in a very amiable conversation, the people from Rediscovery were not able to answer those questions. I think the age ranges I've mentioned is another issue. Typically, we're responsible for students up to the age 21 to 22. This proposal includes students up to the age 24. What happens to those students in that 2-year span? Who's responsible for them? I would encourage you to take a look at this proposal, and I would hope respectfully that you would vote to not support the program and for it to not move forward, not only this year, but there had been some discussion about maybe approving it, and when a certain financial trigger kicked in, that it would be advanced, and I hope you would disapprove it on both counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Azar. We appreciate you being here. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Just to clarify for the board and for Superintendent, I am only recommending one charter school for approval at this meeting. That's the Gloucester.
Thank you. We're going to switch gears a little bit and have 3 folks address the board on the MCAS History and Social Science test with Bob Koska from the Mass Council for Social Studies. Please join us. And if you've heard that beep, I apologize, but that's the 3-minute limit. I hate to impose that, but we have a number of speakers today. Welcome, Bob.
I promise to speak quickly. My name is Bob Koska, and I've been teaching history and social studies at Bridgewater Rainham Regional High School for the past 39 years and counting. I have also served as social studies department head for the past 15 years. I am past president of the Bridgewater Rainham Teachers Association and currently on the executive board of the Mass Council for the Social Studies. I believe I have a fair amount of institutional knowledge, as well as a wide range of experience to speak on the subject of MCAS testing and social studies. I have been an early and consistent advocate of education reform. I can remember hosting Jack Rennie at an open forum in my town to discuss with the citizenry exactly how education reform, as it was being formulated, would impact teachers, schools, and most importantly, student learning. Though not directly involved in the early renditions of the social studies framework, I was a supportive colleague of several social studies state leaders who were. There were conflicts and disappointments with the process, and finally the first framework was rolled out in 1993. This framework contained little input from the social studies community, but became the law, and schools scrambled to align curriculum to match the framework, purchased textbooks and support materials, and trained staff with a new world-focused curriculum. We licked our wounds and, as good soldiers, put our best foot forward. At BR, the social studies department head, I was required to turn our curriculum on its head, dropping a grade 12 government requirement that had existed since the school's inception to offer an additional year of world history to prepare our students for MCAS. Government teachers were retrained to teach world history. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent on world history textbooks, and space was found in the grade 12 schedule to accommodate the change. Most significantly, from my point of view, was that the grade 12 students lost the required course in federal, state, and local government. Often lost in the shuffle is the fact that the whole concept of free public schools was hatched in the mind of Thomas Jefferson, who believed that for a republic to thrive, it was absolutely necessary to have an educated electorate. The people are the government, and given access to the information needed, they would make wise decisions. The public schools would be the place for them to learn how this thing called democracy worked. Then came Framework 2. The good news is that the social studies community was seriously engaged this time. The bad news was that we had to again align curriculum to changes. A year of world history was dropped to be replaced by an additional year of American history. The MCAS test that had previously been focused on world history would now be mostly an American history test. World history teachers were retrained to teach American history. Tens of thousands of dollars of books had to be purchased. Cynics said, "I told you so." But idealistic teachers volunteered to participate in reviewing test items, staff committees that redesigned curriculum, and slogged off for more professional development. A date was chosen for the operational test, then changed, and finally we are geared up for an operational test for the class of 2014. Trust me, we of all people understand that we are in a fiscal crisis. Many of us have been in perpetual fiscal crisis since Prop 2.5 passed. I suspect that most of our teachers have known nothing but do more with less since they entered the profession. But teachers are resilient. I know that after you're done here, you likely will vote to waive the history social studies requirement for a competency determination for the class of 2012-2013 to save the $2.5 million. My main point is this. What you say and how you sell the waiver will have a lot to do with the survival of history and social studies as a necessary subject. Already time spent on social studies in elementary school has dwindled as schools focus on MCAS-tested subjects. Social studies educators have trusted in the system, trained and retrained to deliver curriculum based on the state framework. The Mass Council for the Social Studies Executive Board voted unanimously to support high-stakes testing in social studies. You must say definitively and with certainty that the waiver is for 2 years and that the history and social studies will be MCAS tested. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Koska. Would Sonia Brown from the Boston Arts Academy please come and address the board? Welcome, Sonia.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I have been a teacher in the Boston Public System for 10 years. 9 of those have been in Boston Arts Academy. Currently, I am the chair. During my time at the school, I have earned the reputation of being a hard teacher. Students in my classes are required to retake a quiz if they earn less than an 80. They are required to revise research papers and literary essays until they earn a proficient or an outstanding. Each unit, I send home a grade keeper for students' parents to sign so that they know how their students are progressing. On it is my telephone number if they have any questions or concerns. To all of this, my new freshmen usually say, Ms. Brown, you're forcing it. To which I replied, yes, I am. I say all of this in order to introduce myself as someone who shares your strong belief in high standards for all students, and someone who shares your strong belief in holding teachers, schools, and school systems accountable. I also think we share the same belief that ensuring high achievement for students requires excellent assessment tools and assessment systems. In my 10 years of teaching, I have learned that the best kinds of assessments scaffold and prepare students not only to enter college, but to excel in college and graduate successfully. The best kinds of assessments not only help students gain critical historical content knowledge, but apply that knowledge in real-world situations using real-world skills. They help them become empowered in their economic and personal lives and become citizens who contribute meaningfully to society. The best kinds of assessments also help teachers too. They help us improve our craft and become deeply skillful, creative, and effective in educating students. The History MCAS in its current manifestation does not do any of this. Instead, what it does is diminish valuable teaching and learning. First, it forces teachers to try to cover all 291 separate topics contained in the frameworks because they might show up on the exam. This encourages students to focus on superficial as opposed to in-depth understanding of topics, and to value simple recall over the higher thinking skills of application, analysis, and synthesis. Frankly, even if the test were a doable test, that is not the critical question for me. The critical question for me is this a best assessment that is going to promote the highest levels of achievement for students? Currently, it is not. The History MCAS forces schools to abandon the learning experiences that are truly valuable for students. While cramming for the test, there'll be less time for interdisciplinary projects, less time for debates, less time for exhibitions, less time for students to research, work collaboratively, and think critically about the past and their role in the future. These are some of the key skills highlighted in the 21st century skills, and in my opinion, these are the new basics that need to be added to the traditional basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. There are many other reasons I can go on about why the History MCAS in its current formation is not the test we need to give our students. This current economic crisis gives us the opportunity to reconfigure the history component of the MCAS. Instead of another $2.5 million test in our current fiscal straits, let's take these 2 years to move toward the original vision of assessment set forth in Mirror. Let's move toward articulating the 21st century skills and aligning assessments to those. Let's move toward making a best assessment that will help all students achieve at the highest levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Ms. Brown. And now would Ron Levine, a former member of the Tantasco School Committee, join us? And welcome, Ron.
Good morning, Madam Chair, good morning, board members. I think you have a copy of my text in front of you. I have asked to speak to you today because I'm concerned about both short-term and long-range effects of the postponement of the History and Social Science high-stakes MCAS test. With over 40 years of combined experience in curriculum development and formulating school budgets, I believe that I am qualified to speak to the points stated in the Commissioner's February 13th memo to the board and offer my own analysis of the recommendation. First, the Commissioner's initial reason centers on the state's inability to adequately fund a high-stakes history exam. His hope is then to resume the schedule if and only if the economic picture improves. My concern with this point is that historical data does not support his conclusions. Past practice involving the world languages MCAS exam suggests that exams, after they are initially postponed, eventually disappear from the MCAS radar screen. I fear a similar fate for the history exam. Second, and more significantly, the Commissioner suggests that the 3 other high-stakes tests will require additional support so that students can achieve higher scores. Additionally, he states that he hopes the school systems continue to devote appropriate instructional time and monies to history and social sciences. The reality, however, is that school committees in its budget meetings are aware of this board's decisions and then set priorities in the budget accordingly. What this decision means on the local level is that funds will be reallocated from some programs and shifted towards others. Like it or not, you have established a two-tiered system of disciplines in schools, the MCAS ones and the non-MCAS ones. Superintendents and principals are quick to approve this distinction since most of their contracts have MCAS results and AYP as two of the evaluation criteria to keep their respective positions. Look at the evidence. It already exists. Upon hearing the possibility that this decision will be made in November, the Worcester School Committee voted on a motion to investigate the cost of adding a mandatory fourth year of math as a graduation requirement. That will require a shift of resources from a have-not discipline to a have discipline to meet Mass Core guidelines and higher student test scores. 10 to 12 math teachers must be hired to meet these new demands. Where did the FTEs come from? In effect, if you support this recommendation, then history and social science, which historically was the cornerstone upon which public education was founded, will be relegated to an also-ran category. Third, currently 32 cities and towns in the Commonwealth are registered to receive $44 million in federal grant money entitled Teaching American History, while an additional 100-plus districts have had access to these professional development funds. Furthermore, the school districts are currently in the process of seeking a renewal of grants or applying for the grant for the first time. It may be just a coincidence, but when one examines which states have been awarded the preponderance of these TAH grants, each and every one of them has in place currently a high-stakes test for history and social science. Is there a connection? I don't know. But before I made a final decision, or a final decision is made, I would find out if these monies would be at risk or lost cause. In summary, the impact on budgets, staffing, professional development, and curriculum from the 3rd grade to the 12th grade are at stake. At stake are the 4 standards: history, government, geography, economics, found in the history and social science framework you set for our children. Which one of those standards does not deserve to be studied on an equal footing with the MCAS disciplines? I have to conclude with a vote of support for this recommendation. The answer is none. Thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns with you.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Levine. We're now going to move back to some comments about the Gloucester Charter School. As I ask Roger Garberg, for mispronouncing your name, to join us, may I please remind speakers to keep their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and members of the board, President and Brookline. My name is Roger Garberg. I'm the parent of a first grader at East Gloucester Elementary School, and I've also been an advocate for public schools for many years and currently serve as chairman of the Gloucester Stand for Children. Public school advocates in Gloucester know that you want to approve charter schools that have good prospects for success and that provide carefully crafted new ideas to support struggling school districts. The Gloucester charter proposal unfortunately offers neither of these things. Instead, the applicants seek to maintain their case, I'm sorry to say, through misrepresentations, distortions, and omissions of relevant data. There's too little time really to catalog more than a couple of instances, but I'll give you 2. Item, applicants claim that MCAS scores fall over the course of Gloucester middle school grades. This is selective and misleading use of data. The claim fails when you look at a range of cohorts, including the most recent 8th grade cohort. These students show improvements in MCAS throughout the middle school period. Item, the applicant states that the Gloucester student body is, quote, not normally resource intensive, not, end quote. This is flat out false. Gloucester has a higher than average SPED population, which they neglected to mention in their initial application together. There are many other instances of this type of really negative PR that you'll see in a report that I prepared and should have in front of you. But really the worst distortion is one of omission. Omitted really are 6 years of school budget shortfalls in Gloucester, staff and service cuts, school closures. You've heard the mayor refer to some of the pain that we went through in Gloucester there. Omitted are the community's determined efforts to continue providing new and effective educational innovations in the face of terrible odds. None of this finds its way into the application. Yet this history foretells the perilous financial prospects that the charter holds for our city. Well, why are Gloucester's district finances relevant to judging the merits of the charter application? I ask. Because charter students will also attend traditional Gloucester public schools, both before and after they attend a charter school. In one or more primary school years, they will be taught in crowded schools with larger class sizes and fewer services because of the charter costs. And later, students who attend the charter school will return to Gloucester's high school, which latter will have been laboring with bare-bone budgets because, again, of the charter costs. At the high school, they'll join the struggles with classmates from primary schools reeling from the charter-driven cuts to staff and services. This is not the recipe for a vibrant secondary school education. No one wins, neither charter nor regular district students, when the financial impact of the charter mandate deprives many children of adequate educational opportunity. Bottom line, you can't logically put aside its financial impact on the Gloucester district when you consider the value of a charter mandate. This is because the cost of the charter not only poses a danger to the majority of Gloucester students, it threatens the educational services available to charter students as well. So please let us continue to make the innovations and improvements our district needs. Please deny this misleading, distorting, and ultimately untenable application. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Garberg. Would Valerie Gilman from the Gloucester School Committee please join us? Good morning, Valerie. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioner Chester, Attorney Martinelli, Chairperson Banta, board members, including Ruth Kaplan. We appreciate you being on the phone and participating.
Thank you.
First, there is no widespread community support for this application. On December 12th, your panel heard public testimony on this issue in Gloucester. 17 individuals, 7 of them founding board members of the proposed charter school, spoke in favor. 48 spoke in opposition, while 46 additional opposing speakers were unable to speak due to time constraints. That is 17 supporting speakers versus 96 in opposition. Charter supporters defended their low turnout, claiming that parents were fearful to get up in front of their children's teachers at the hearing. They were encouraged to submit letters. This plea resulted in 16 supporting letters. Your public statistics indicate that your board received 151 opposing letters. That is 16 supporting letters versus 151 opposing letters, almost 10 times the amount of opposition. The vast majority of those in opposition are private citizens and parents of Gloucester Public School students. Unfortunately, media coverage of this initiative would make you believe that the majority of parents favor granting the charter and only elected officials and school administrators and employees are in opposition. This is simply not the case. Second, support from partnering organizations are also evaporating. The board should be aware that since the public hearing, 3 charter partners, Lesley University, Sea Arts, and Montserrat College of Art, have either withdrawn their letters of support or neutralized their initial position. Without the support of either the community or partners, can this proposed charter be successful? And finally, our last census in the year 2000 indicated a population of 30,273. Ann Margaret Ferrante and Senator Tarr have asked our city clerk to confirm this new number in light of a recent exodus of people leaving our city due to the layoffs. If we were under 30,000, we would fall within the confines of a regional charter school, which would certainly help us share the financial burden. Gloucester Public Schools continually strive to improve with dedicated educational professionals and parents and community involvement. We have found ways to bring innovation to all of our students. Despite deep budget cuts that have led to 77 teacher layoffs since 2002 and the closure of a school, we have taken steps to achieve stability. All of this is in jeopardy if we are forced to accommodate this charter by eventually, after 5 years, losing $2.4 million in our small, already financially strapped district. In his recent budget proposal, Governor Patrick has recognized the flaws of the current charter school system and has proposed a new vision for reform. As I speak before you this morning, I can't help but feel that should this charter be granted, our district would be the last one asked to pay for a flawed system. Board members, please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman, for your testimony. Would Superintendent Christopher Farmer please address the board? Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Commissioner. Given what you've heard already, I'm going to partially set aside what I was going to say because I see little point in repeating some of the things that you've heard already and are well documented. I do want to remind the board that you're required to come to the conclusion that there are compelling reasons why the proposed school is needed. I do not believe that a compelling reason has been established. Roger Garberg has drawn attention to some of the issues, and my report to you does the same. A charter school will bring innovation that the district desperately needs and has shunned. That is simply not true. The application attacks the middle school as the soft belly of the district, as the former principal of a very highly regarded Silicon Valley middle school that serves a very affluent community. I well know that parents universally worry about adolescents, and they worry about adolescents in aggregate. And especially if the school has previously been a junior high school, there is an institutional memory of the school that is no longer present. This year, O'Malley Middle School made AYP in the aggregate. We're told that parents are fleeing the middle school. This year, there are 37 students choiced out of grade 8, 21 out of 7, 13 out of grade 6. And that is a reflection of the work that the principal, Dr. Tracy, and his staff are doing to re-establish confidence in the school. You have read in the application about school choice. Well, the reasons are simple. 1.2 million cut in 2003-04 destabilized the Gloucester system. In the last published year of all fund expenditure, Gloucester 10,996, nearby Manchester Essex 12,772, nearby Rockport 12,099, the state average 11,858. That is the real explanation as to why people move out of what is in many ways a working class city into middle class suburbia. That also contradicts the notion that lack of funding is often stated as the reason for the district's poor performance. I've just given you the figures. Roger Garberg has dealt with the issue of the heterogeneity, and Val Gilman has drawn attention to the lack of community support. I want to say to you that I do not believe that there's a compelling argument. I believe you have a responsibility not just to look at the potential positive impact of what I'm calling the collateral damage. Senator Tarr has raised with me the question of future collaboration with the proponents of the charter school. I have made it clear to him, and I make it clear to you now, that notwithstanding my reservations about the application, the Gloucester Public School District, through me and others, stands ready and willing to talk with anybody about ways to improve our district. You cannot change everything at once. We have been focusing on literacy, math, and most recently science. We're ready to look at the arts, and I've opened a discussion with the Mass Cultural Council about ways in which they could help us develop our teaching and learning to better integrate and build on what we're doing at the present time. So please, you've heard Senator Tarr, you've heard Representative Anne-Margaret Ferranti. We stand ready to discuss the improvement of the Gloucester Public Schools with anyone. I thank you for listening.
Thank you for being with us, Superintendent. Would Ed Schuker, the president of the Gloucester Education Foundation, please address the board?
Good morning, my name is Ed Schuker, resident of Gloucester. I'm here today to ask you to decide not to approve this charter school application. Gloucester's public schools are far, far stronger than described in this application. Nor does the application correctly tell the story of the large and growing number of people and organizations strengthening Gloucester's schools, and who are already helping to make real many and more of the kinds of innovations written about in this application. As parents, my wife and I care deeply about excellence in education. Both went to top public schools in New York, Texas. We both went on to college and graduate schools such as Harvard, MIT, Duke, and Kenyon. We care about excellence in education. In Gloucester's elementary and middle schools, our 9 and 11-year-old have learned from teachers, most of whom are well-trained, creative, and resourceful. The schools are safe and welcoming environments, with staff doing a solid job teaching to the broad abilities of the students, including the arts. Of course, more can be done. And of course, there are always going to be people who are hard to satisfy. I know, because I'm one of them. That's why in 2006, I joined with a number of parents, community leaders, business leaders, to organize the Gloucester Education. Today, in 3 short years, GEF has raised over $1 million in support of the schools. Our initial focus has been on math and science. And thanks to a grant from a local family to our foundation, a unique partnership now exists between Gloucester and MIT. Gloucester faculty now partner with MIT faculty to use the Institute's cutting-edge STEM learning modules. Thanks to the partnership, all the elementary grades have brand new math textbooks. There's a full-time district-wide STEM coordinator. An elementary math specialist is being hired. A new STEM lab is being built in the middle school. Last year, 26 middle school students participated in a summer camp at MIT, and this summer, 40 students are going to be attending. Last year, our foundation began turning our attention to the arts. For the first time in decades, string instruments are being taught in the elementaries. We are funding a citywide band program for elementary and middle school students. A highly successful GPS Arts Festival last spring in downtown Gloucester showcased student work, and we are organizing the program again this spring. The internationally acclaimed Odyssey of the Mind program is now up and running in the middle school, in which teams of students solve problems that might be technical in nature, using the arts and performance arts. Just this month, we made a $25,000 grant to start a new film and video program in the middle and high school. And this summer, we're going to be hosting the Gloucester Youth Film and Video Festival for students to showcase their work. The foundation has raised funds to begin bringing in visiting artists to work with the art teachers and students, and our foundation support for the arts is just beginning. I ask that you decide not to approve this charter school application in light of the district's many exciting and innovative educational programs, especially in the new arts initiatives that are just beginning, but are not included in the application before you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Would Sarah Crow, a parent from Gloucester, please come and address the board? Welcome.
Hello, thank you. It's Sarah Grow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's my 50-year-old eyes. I really apologize.
I'm used to it. Thank you very much today. My name is Sarah Grow. I'm a Gloucester parent of 3 children.
No, we can't. Sal?
We lost
Can
the
you hear me
sound.
now?
Yes.
Sorry, okay. My name is Sarah Grow. I'm a Gloucester parent of 3 children that attend East Gloucester Elementary. I'm on the PTO, the site-based council. I'm involved in various campaigns in support of education, and on the board of the Gloucester Education Foundation that's brought thousands of dollars in innovative programs to our schools. For over 6 years, our community has been dealing with an economic decline that has cut 77 teachers, cut library funding, cut world languages, closed a school and redistricted students. Governor Patrick has acknowledged that Gloucester is financially fragile due to funding inequities. Now mid-year, while some districts face cuts for the first time, we are in fact having to cope with cuts of $300,000. This is but a drop in the ocean to what $2 million in cuts will do to us annually. Despite what the application purports, there are many parents, just like me, that have not only chosen to stay in this district, but have volunteered hundreds of hours, raised thousands of dollars, written grants, and worked together to make all our schools better, despite our difficult economic times. This charter application has appropriated and indeed hijacked the many innovative and successful programs without even acknowledging that they have already existed in our district. In fact, Chair of the Charter Board, Peter Van Ness, even stated in the Boston Globe Friday that what we teach won't be all that much different from what is taught in the district, end quote. It begs the question that if they admit it's not different, then why bother? Please, I'd like you to see my attachment that I've forwarded here with all the innovations that they're proposing that we have already implemented. My school was at the forefront of bringing foundations, responsive classroom, as well as the highly regarded portfolio system that the charter school is so hopeful to implement. We are not hoping. We are, in fact, doing. The Gloucester Education Foundation has brought innovative math to all, hands-on science to all, and over $1 million of innovative STEM programs to the MITC initiative. We recently found out that the GEF has also been awarded a highly competitive, federally funded grant bringing over $600,000 of marine sciences to all students grades 3 through 8. Never before has a public school system and an education foundation been awarded this prestigious grant. These are not even after-school programs that are actually built into the curriculum. In addition, a well-connected local artist has been employed by GEF to run and organise our annual GPS Arts Festival to bring local artists and student work together to celebrate the arts. These are not hopes, but bona fide successes that are going on in our district right now. The only innovation in their proposals is that they've managed to find a way to limit class size, which is amazing, considering that one of my second graders is actually in a class of 27 right now. And I wonder how big her class will be if another school or more is closed. And what will this do to the achievement gap? I ask you to vote against the charter because this application is pure imitation and not innovation. I ask you to consider that one of your charges is to preserve innovation and success. And although that may have been in reference to our charters, to your charter schools, it equally applies to our innovation and our successes. The parents that have brought about and supported our district-wide innovations have stood strong while our
Is Mark here? I haven't seen him yet.